Okay, we'll call the March County Art School meeting order. Thanks to a couple teachers. We have some guests tonight. Thanks for coming. Turn over to Mr. Severson for some thank yous and congratulations.
Just a couple that are under Ashton McFadden being named for All District 5 14, and for the All District 5 14.
Any additions? Lindsay, you had one, or anybody else have any agenda items?
I have ND Fit.
ND Fit is the only
Where do you want to go with that?
I suppose it's new business, probably under other.
ND Fit. Okay, on other I. Okay. Anything else?
That's under our learning plan. If anybody's got anything for that, so just put
COVID-19 learning plan?
learning plan
Okay.
under the COVID-19 leave discussion /
Under? Okay.
Well, yeah,
It's
I'll
all
actually
together, yeah.
I'll do it all at once, yeah.
Okay. Okay. Not, we need a motion to approve the amended agenda.
Make motion to approve the amended agenda.
Okay.
I'll second.
All in favor of approval of the new agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is approved. Consent agenda, minutes, bills, and financial reports. Any questions, comments, or anything there? Joe Cummings? Good? Any questions on that? If not, all set.
Mike?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Eric? Chad?
Yep.
Brent?
Yes.
Michelle?
Yes.
Cindy?
Yes.
Brett?
Yes.
Lee?
Committee report, president report, nothing. Career and Tech, we meet tomorrow, and Mr. Volk's here, so he can take over the Career and Tech report.
Thank you, Mr. Severson, and the board for letting me come tonight. Typically, we try and come out during the month of February. That's the Career Tech Ed month. But this year got wrapped up with things. So again, thanks for letting me come out. This year, we have 12 DC students that are participating in 3 out of 8 programs at the Career Tech Center, including auto, welding, and construction. This year, COVID kind of forced all of us for our main goal to be keeping students and staff healthy, coming face-to-face. Despite quarantines and isolation periods, we've only had to hire a teacher on 4 occasions. Otherwise, we've been able to utilize Teams to keep teachers in front of students. Those are our experts, and we're glad that they were healthy enough to be able to remote in that way. Likewise, we've been fortunate that we only had to deem 2 students as close contacts and known positives in our building. Most of the time, we're able to distance more than the 6 feet and 15 minutes that was being close contact, and then once both parties, if they were masked, were no longer considered close contact. We've been requiring students and staff to mask 100% of the time so far at the center. As frustrating as that is, we're bringing students in from 4 different schools. So any outbreak in our school potentially negatively affects 4 different schools. So we've had to be a little bit more strict with some of our members. We're hoping that numbers keep continuing and soon we lift some of those restrictions because, like I said, most of the time we are able to distance more than 15 feet. Anyway, so far so good. We're hoping to finish this year strong and relax a little bit of the COVID protocol along the way. We're still sanitizing classrooms between blocks and more thoroughly at the end of this year. Besides COVID, there are a few things that I'd like to highlight from this year. We did start a career work experience program. It's in addition to our transition program. It's run by the same instructor that Taylor Oates was doing it with a lot of our transition students already, where she had a lot of connections with area employers and was finding opportunities for her students to work and get some job experience. What we're finding is with our instructors, our auto tech, our construction placing kids on the job site, but not really able to supervise them while they were on that job site. So there was a little bit of shenanigans going on sometimes, and we weren't always able to ensure that the students were getting out of it what the intent was. Back in the day, before I was in high school, we had a program called School at Work that was funded by our state, and we employed a person to be that person that was monitoring career work experience and job placement. But when that funding dried up, that program disappeared. We've applied for a grant through the Bush Grant, $20,000 a year to carve out half-day time in Mrs. Boats' schedule so that she can create those contacts, be that relationship point of contact, and then work with our instructors to match up a student's skill set with a job experience opportunity, and then monitor them, be that conduit back and forth. So far, even though COVID has kind of put a damper on some of the opportunities for our students, feedback that we're getting is that businesses appreciate having that one person to go to, and not, depending on what school they came from, going to a different person. They're appreciative that our instructors are ensuring that the student that we're placing with them actually has the skill set to be successful at that job. And it's helping our programs because we're learning firsthand through Mrs. Boats what is the expectation of these employers and how can we front load that in our program so that our students are coming out with the skills to be successful right out the gate. So we're fortunate again to have that program funded through that Bush Grant for the next 2 years. Thereafter, we'll have to evaluate whether or not that is something we want to plan to budget in. But so far, positive results on that. So, again, this program is available to any second-year student in any CTE class, not just the ones that we offer at our center. So any of your CTE classes, even in your own building, if you have students that are interested in participating in that. Mrs. Boats, like I said, has about half a day, so her radius, she can drive an hour and a half from our center in any direction to be able to supervise the job experiences. So it would encompass employers that are right here in your area, Maple Valley, Midland area, all of our universities.
Do you have a number how many you've got?
About 12, but there's about another dozen that want to be placed, but because they're like in the health careers field, a lot of the hospitals, long-term care facilities aren't allowing our students in quite yet. So yeah, no, it's a program I can see potential for growth in, and hopefully some of our students here at BCS can benefit that too. House project, last year was the first year we built a house on site. Unfortunately, this year, today, we got the news that we weren't going to have students anymore to finish that project. So we had to sell it as is. We were fortunate to find a buyer to do that and take it off our hands. And feel bad for the students that they didn't get to finish, but at the same time, fortunate that we didn't have to sit on it for a year and weren't able to liquidate it. So this year, kind of not knowing how long we would or wouldn't have students, Mike actually played matchmaker with Valley Realty for us. They had a property where a house had burned down, but there was still a 2-stall garage on the property where we could store our equipment and tools and lock it up safely. They dug and poured a foundation about 2 days before school started and turned over the keys to us. And since then, we've been building on that house. It's a block and a half north of the high school, straight north of the courthouse if you're in town. If you want to swing by and take a look at it. They literally started with a blank foundation. They've done wiring and plumbing and electrical, all the framing up. Right now, they've completed sheetrock, taping, and mudding. The primer and painting is done, and they've done part of the siding. So it's really getting there, and they should be super proud of the work they've done on it.
There's
7 BCN students.
They're
are-
setting doors and cabinets right now.
Yeah, the cabinets were delivered the other day.
So how long would a student be working on that in a day?
So
how
in
long
it-
do they get?
About 90 minutes.
That's it?
Yeah,
But-
but if you multiply that by the 15, 20 kids, that's a lot of man hours in
Yeah.
a short period of time.
They are getting a lot done for the 2 blocks that they are.
Absolutely.
So
they are.
you got a group coming and then another group comes and works on.
Yep. So our second year construction students kind of act like quasi managers. They've been through this once before, know how it's supposed to be done, so they can help take on this portion with this group of younger students, and then Mr. Bowen goes around and supervises all of those. It's it's really quite interesting. It's about as close to a real job site as you can get with one of our programs.
And I think it did help with, working with Valley Realty, we could get the telehandlers, some of the equipment that we don't have,
Yeah,
but these guys can have access to start working with.
we got our fingers crossed that maybe the Valley Realty will slide us a telehandler when we're done here and let us keep it up at our place. But it is more realistic. I mean, we built a house in our parking lot, and that's a great opportunity for our students, but there's nothing like working with it on site and having to deal with the mud and the cold and the, you know, getting a real life look at what construction really is, and having the telehandler. It's pretty cool. You know, I'd go down there and a couple times and check things out. The students were getting an opportunity to try things themselves, but also see how the pros are doing it, because like a Keith's Heating and Air Conditioning would come in and finish up, you know, all the heating and ductwork, and they were able to pick his brain. And I know there's at least one, if not two, kids lined up with a summer internship.
And those contractors work pretty good with them kids?
They are, well, they're excited to see kids
Yeah.
excited about construction trades. You know, that's,
They really bought in. I don't know if some of them are still under your advisory committees or which
Yeah.
ones, but
yeah.
they bought into doing this, yeah.
Yeah. So we're hoping that we can create more partnerships and opportunities for our students that way, and or, you know, potential used equipment that they no longer, I mean, they can throw it our way and our kids can get that experience. Yeah, no, super cool opportunity for our students. So if you get a chance to swing by, they should be darn proud. He's actually looking at potentially doing, we are, I guess, if it works out with Valley Realty this year, there's no reason not to continue with that. And depending on the growth of the program, he even said he'd be willing to look at a second build or a partial second build anyway, because they took about a month and a half off here where they're building their own cabinets just because they're so far ahead that they run out before the end of the year. One other side project, they're looking at making a picnic shelter both for Faust Park and for, what's the other lake?
Thought they're down by the little Yellowstone or one.
Yeah, gosh. I
One
can't
of the two
remember
down there, I don't know.
It's on.
Might be Clausen's.
No, it's on that. Anyway, we're building 2 picnic shelters that, in conjunction with Barnes County Wildlife, that, again, we put up and save them a little labor.
Yeah.
Practice for. Anyway, another program that's growing really, really fast is our Ag Ed program. We were fortunate to steal a 16-year veteran from Rolla that moved to Valley City, and he had been used to teaching in a 45-minute time frame up in Rolla. So his first year teaching in block, he felt like he had too much time. He could serve the kids better by breaking in with 45-minute chunks. He was actually offering seven different sections of Ag Ed, everything from equine science to natural resources, horticulture, and then yeah, he's a rock star of an Ag Ed teacher. He actually won the North Dakota Ag Ed Teacher of the Year award the year he moved to Valley City. Yeah, he's got a student teacher. I'm guessing Valley City is going to keep plugging for student teachers. It's a great resource to learn from. But one of the classes we did add was an Intro to Ag Ed class. That actually came from an idea from one of your parents when we came to an open house here. We were talking that Valley City students have the opportunity to start in the FFA program in 9th grade. They have the opportunity to take Intro to Ag in 8th grade. Well, how can we get our kids to teach earlier? So that's the Intro to Ag class, online opportunity that should fit the schedule. I know 9th and 10th grade, there's not a whole lot of wiggle room in that schedule. There's that opportunity. We did have a couple students from Maple Valley take that online class this year. Mr. Chris went to Maple Valley, taught from there on projects. I know he'd be willing to do the same if we had from expand into that. Mr. Chris will be the first to tell you Ag Ed is not about teaching about farming and ranching, although there is a section of that, you know, in not just for people that are looking into going into farming and ranching. It's kind of strange that that's the perception of students, but the students that actually want to go into farming and ranching think they already know that, and then they don't take it either. It's odd. It really, the Ag Ed program is a good intro to everything we do up at the Career and Tech Center, because they do a little bit of metal fab, they do a little bit of woodworking, they do a little bit of planting and soil work. It's really a good exploratory class for someone that knows they want to work with their hands, but not sure quite opportunities there. Pretty popular class. We might have to actually look at a way to split them up or hire somebody additionally on to continue growing that program into the first semester. A couple more things, legislative support. As you may or may not be aware, there's several bills being considered by the state legislature at this time aimed at creation and expansion of CTE centers like the one we have. I'm working with Mr. Severson and other superintendents to be ready to capitalize on any funding that might be available to make sure that some of those dollars find their way to students in Barnes County, not all to Fargo and Williston and Dickinson. Some ideas thus far have been a physical expansion to allow us to offer more programming, potential room to consolidate programs that we currently have in our member schools, but not accessible to everybody. If we had more room and could house it there, not only does that give more students the opportunity to take it, but there's a higher reimbursement level if it's housed at a center versus in one of our member schools. 26% in a member school, 40%. Other ideas, renovation and upgrades to our current facilities, potential expansion of a satellite center. Again, more opportunity for more students. The most interesting one that precipitated out of our talks is the true career academy model. Career academy model is where students would come to the center for the entire day and take their remaining required classes either at our center or remoting back into the site to take those classes. Pros and cons of that are, one, we would need more space. As a con, a pro would be we wouldn't necessarily have to replicate the classes on our bookend like we do now. Currently, Maple Valley comes in the morning, DCN and Litchfield Marion in the afternoon. So we duplicate the classes that we teach so that coming in those two times have the same opportunity. Where if they have the opportunity to come all day, we can offer a third more programming with the same amount of staffing. So it's not a perfect plan for everybody. Not everybody has that room in their schedule. Not everybody learns so well in a remoting back-in fashion. But for a select group of students that know I'm going into a hands-on trade and I don't have very much of my required classes left, it would be an opportunity where they could come, for the first half of the year and maybe double dip taking welding and auto, and then we can get them into a career work experience. And we let them try it out before they end up paying for a 2 or 4 year degree in that area. So.
There'd mainly be seniors then, probably, right?
Mainly seniors in our estimation. Yeah, before they really have time in their schedule.
Right.
But I suppose it's theoretically possible if they were in an advanced math class, maybe they're done before their junior year with math. And if they're only remoting back in for English and science, that wouldn't be too much of a load to ask. But, yeah. Yeah, and last but not least, just a reminder, we get a grant for putting Wi-Fi on buses. That would give students the opportunity to take a class on the way to and from our center instead of losing that class period in transporting on the way there. So, again, not for everybody. We understand online classes, especially with hands-on learners, don't always match up, but you have those rare few that are successful in either format and might be more apt to take a hands-on class from the Career and Tech Center if they knew they weren't losing that class period. As soon as we have somebody willing to take up advantage of that opportunity, we'll put that Wi-Fi system on the bus and it can be used for whatever you see fit.
How about the greenhouse?
Greenhouse, we do have potential of a $30,000 Barnes County on the Move grant to be used toward a greenhouse. We're currently looking at a high tunnel system. We're debating on size and working with Ag Ed Advisory Committee to decide, do we need to do some soil sampling? Maybe that dictates the size a little bit. Or do we just say, no, we're going to go with, tables, planting tables, and that way it doesn't necessarily matter what's underneath the ground as much. But potentially looking at, what are the costs of operation? How do we come up with those? And so it's in discussions. We want to do it. Those things, unfortunately, kind of because of the hoops and hurdles of the grant itself, take longer than like. No, I don't know how much of my 35 minutes I have left, but I don't want to take up your time too much. But do you have questions, comments, concerns? Doors always open, and I really do appreciate your ideas. That's how we grow. And
think you could mention where the Development Corporation is looking to, they've done the welding, they are looking to try to help us out.
They are, they would like,
They would like a lot of
Long-term.
things that we're not sold on yet, yes.
yeah, they would like us to be able to offer more in the way of like adult ed classes. So someone that is maybe working in town that would like to retool their education and take a job at John Deere or Malik in the welding, or Preventus, there's job opportunities there that if they know how to read an EKG, it's a pretty good paying job, and but there's some specific knowledge they need to learn to be able to do that. They have kind of $100,000 set aside that they would be willing to put towards something like that. Kind of the hiccup is most of our instructors work a 40-hour week and then go home and ranch or run a gravel pit, or they're not really looking to add another 20 hours to their work week by doing night classes or weekend classes. The opportunity is certainly there, the equipment's certainly there. We've dabbled in it some. We before COVID had a few night classes for adults who wanted to go work at John Deere or Malik. Our instructor got a little bit burned out and said, "Yeah, we'll let somebody else teach it this next time." But then some of our resources were with drinks left in the classroom and gaskets left on, and now it's empty. Our students have to deal with not being able to do that for a day. It wasn't ideal to have somebody else teach it, so we're still kind of trying to feel our way through that. But they're interested in putting money into our center, but with some strings attached that they would like to see us opening more things up to adults. Unfortunately, our state doesn't provide funding for that. Some other states do. Ohio, I know I'm talking with Brad Calendar, the Hope Page, who came from there. They ran a second shift, basically, of educators, one in the evening with a second director and everything, that focused solely on adult learners, and the state funded that. If and when we ever get to that point, until then, I don't want to take K-12 money and give it to the partner that had that opportunity once already. Other things?
That's what our discussion was, we don't wanna fund it from our end for adult ed. We're funding it.
State is interested in that. The opportunity is there.
The biggest thing for the development of the meetings that you and I attend to, they would help us with it.
It would help us with this. Yes. But costs continue. Another matter. They have money now, but can they continue that 5, 10, 20 years down the road? Yep.
Gonna have another tour night?
I would love to soon. It would have been this year,
I like that.
had we not had the whole.
I think that was the thought when you talked about, I know you went to Valley, because normally this would be the year we would have went down there, I believe, we do it every 2 years.
Yep. And we would have brought 5th and 6th graders in, we would add sophomores. I came here last week and did a presentation to the sophomores where each one of our teachers did a 3 to 7 minute video and kind of introduced what they do in lieu of them actually coming to our center like they normally would. Pros and cons, they were able to listen in more detail without their buddies, jostling around or whatever about what our programs are about. But it's not the same as getting your hands on it, seeing what those classes are about. So we're hoping maybe at the end of this year, those that were interested, we could maybe throw them in a bus and they come during when that bus would normally come, and they go to the 1 or 2 classes they're most interested in. And I think that way we could split them up 3 to 5 and not send a slug of 20, 25 through at a time. Be a little bit safer. I was out at Maple Valley today and did that same presentation, and they asked if we could look at something like that. I don't see, if numbers stay where they're at or keep getting better, I don't see why we couldn't look at something like that. Now I am pushing that 30, 35. I could talk for a long time, but please, you got ideas, I'm serious, call. Love to have you come up and take a tour sometime.
Mrs. Bitts, technology report. your
together.
turn, Mrs. Bussey.
Mine will be a little longer, maybe. Proof of what I need to do. Mr. Severson talked about adding the COVID discussion plan, because I would like you guys to consider a couple of things. And that's the capability to do field trips. I feel like things could be done in a safe manner for our kids and keep them in cohorts or with masks, but consider that for the end of the year. And then a request to have pre-K2 return to eating breakfast in the commons areas, to get them in the line and get breakfast ate and cleaned up and then return to their room for learning. So keep that in mind when we discuss the COVID learning plan later on. Something I would like to add to our agenda for next month that really wasn't thought about, but before I came here, we had early outs for professional development. And last year we had COVID. So it was brought to my attention that usually at the second week in May, we do an annual Title I review. And we don't have that built into our calendar because we don't do early outs anymore. So for the April board meeting, I would like to add that we do some calendar changes. So for this year, adjust the calendar. So on May 14th, we would release an hour early to hold that Title I review meeting. And that gives our title teachers a couple weeks to wrap up that paperwork. And then to amend our next year's calendar for May 13th to have that early out 1 hour prior so that we could hold that annual title meeting. We were scheduled last spring to go to a PLC summit in Bismarck, and that is back on the schedule for April 8th. 5 of us will be going to Bismarck on the 7th and attending the summit the next day. It's a Thursday. We opted out of doing the team work time on Friday, just due to subs, and we'll utilize PLC time to implement what we learn. This year, we did the Reading Corps grant money, and we've seen lots of success with our students that are enrolled into that program. Next year, that first year grant fund stuff runs out. So keep that in mind for considering. I don't know if I have to get it approved to have Becky back on as our Reading Corps tutor. We do have enough kids in it to fill full time.
I think
Yeah.
that's what we talked last year, see how it goes, and then we reassess it.
Yes, and so I'll probably bring that up to be approved here because they'll start sending out the applications. And with that in mind, they talked to us at our principal meeting about math core being funded the first year. Our math scores are a lot higher with our students. Math core focuses on 4th through 8th grade, and I have been looking into the data into the program to see if it would meet the needs of some of our students. And we already know that it would be probably a tutor from like 2 hours a day versus all day like Reading Corps. But we have more looking into that too, so I'll keep you posted on that. Update on the house points, we reached over 9,000 points, when I checked today. Oh, and I didn't even add the points after the app that we're now utilizing, so I forgot those points. And then we have written 205 Bison Pride cards for our students. I subbed in a classroom today, and one of the students said, Miss, I had them fill out Bison Pride cards for, our community members that helped them with their 3rd grade project. And they said, well, I got one of these, the words filled up the whole space. Like, that's a good thing. We have lots of good things to say about our kids. Through the mental health grant that we received, with your guys' approval, we do have March 18th off. The whole staff will meet for the 45 minutes and then 2 sessions. A handful of us are also doing restorative conference training. And then commerce totals, out of the ones that were requested, we were at 98%. And then we also had some parents still sign up for conferences because they were optional this year. So 92% of the ones that teachers asked to see, and then we have some extras that. So. More wait time for me than you did anybody else, Mike.
What? Had more what?
Wait time. Wait for the test question.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Wilson. Dr. Ball, principal report.
Junior took the ACT test on March 2nd. We had all juniors present, so nobody has to make up that, so that's a good thing. He stated that he was here last Thursday to discuss course offerings with our sophomores, and I knew this would be a large group of kids that would. And yeah, kids changed their mind, but as of now, there were 14 of them that said that they were going to go there. So, I don't think it will change drastically from that number, but there might be some that change their mind. But I knew this would be a large group of kids that would have a lot of interest in going down there for the class. We're in the middle of snow week here for the high school. We had dodgeball today, and staff and students enjoyed it greatly. It was one of the most energetic ones since I've been here, which was to be expected after all of this, to be able to be in that gymnasium, just having fun, so that was awesome to see. End of quarter 3 is on Friday of this week. So then, we're into the fourth quarter and then into summer, so it's gonna start going by quickly. Just thinking about the field trips that Mrs. Bussey had said, senior trip, they're already looking at it. Is that something that we're not going to allow, or are we going to allow them to do that?
They want to do it first.
What did you say?
They want to do it April 1st, is what I heard through.
Where they wanna go.
They want to go to Fargo. Pretty much the same thing that the last group did 2 years ago. They want to go to Sky Zone, and then instead of the lockdown room, they want to go roller skating. They're going to rent out the skate arena and whatnot for a couple hours, and then go to the mall. Yeah, because they want to do their senior prank on the 31st, and then their senior trip on the 1st, and then we have that 4-day weekend after that. So it didn't even, as I was talking to them, cross my mind that that was something that.
Well, they'll be talking about it, hopefully it's the big so.
I think that's part of the
Kids,
discussion
kids.
with license, or field trips and that type of thing, yes.
Yeah.
Well, I'm against fun of any kind.
Girls here, girls out, girls back, yeah.
So breathy,
Yeah, so as far as the senior trip part, that was the.
Mr. Wilson. No, thanks. Turn it to Mr. Severson,
Okay.
Superintendent AD report.
Yep, Lindsay and I went to the vice agreement last week. Basically, we went through all of the forms that we have. The one that we were interested in more was the transition payments. And one of the issues that we were talking about was the 6 years at 15% and 1 year at 10. Brad Dick was talking about moving that 10% for the first year. But whether that goes through or not, who knows, but all indications are that that will continue. It's just gonna figure out how they're trying to lessen the blow for some of the schools that have the minimum of transition payments. Our leadership team will switch in May. We've decided that what we're gonna do is that the high school and the elementary representatives on that team will be whichever curriculum we're looking at, which we're starting to look at social studies. So in May, the current high school and elementary teachers will go off, and the ones that will be representing social studies will come on, and they will be on through the year till we get the social studies done. If we choose whatever next year, then that was how we'll rotate the staff members. As far as AD, we have 11 baseball players. We have 1 senior, 2 juniors, 2 freshmen, an 8th grader, and 5 7th graders. Tonight, we'll be approving a school bus, which will be one of the smaller buses, 14 passenger, that we'll use specifically for baseball. I put in a formal proposal to Jamestown for hockey. We have a couple kids in the Valley City club hockey right now that would like to continue, but they can't unless they're either in Valley City or if we have a co-op. So I put a formal proposal together for Jamestown for hockey.
Anything else? Or
Nope, should be good.
any questions, AD or superintendent?
Track, what's the NDHS, what's the high school league looking at for track this year? Have you heard?
For track?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
I mean, are they gonna be able to do it, or?
Oh, yeah, all the, what do you have, Nate, how many track meets have you gotten? They're all over the state.
Yeah, they're starting to pop up around here. I think we actually looked at it. We have, as of right now, within reasonable distance, we have 7 junior high meets set up and 9, not including 3 varsity meets. Valley City is still looking at allowing us to attend their meets. They are concerned still with COVID precautions of how many people they're allowed to have. So their initial invite didn't include us. So I've spoken with their coach about that. And if they decide to open it up, we're on the list. We are on the list for some of the later meets, but they're really early ones, the ones they're holding back on. So,
Those are indoor meet or outdoor meet?
NDSU, I don't think the NCAA is allowing, under like recruiting, or however they're considering it, any high school students to attend collegiate venues. And seeing as they're all owned by the colleges, those are pretty much axed for the year.
Okay.
Officially only from NDSU, but nobody else has announced anything either, so I would go with the hard no on having any indoor meets for the year. And if the weather holds, we hopefully wouldn't even need them, so. And then with that, with numbers wise there too, we're at 30 kids, 28 to 35, depending, about 30. That's 7-12, so we had the first day of practice today.
Thanks.
Could you explain that transition funding a little bit more, what's happening there?
It was back in, I don't know how many years ago they started, but it ended up that there was a hold harmless put in to hold all schools harmless when they redid the funding formula. And this district got hit extremely hard, so they made up for it by putting in these they put in what's called a minimum payment, minimum transition payment. So then every year, in lieu of what we were getting before, that payment came through. So every year, we were getting that 1.3 million. And over the next 6-7 years, they're going to be taking that 15% away. And then right now, the proposal is 15% for 6 years, and the 7th year, the final 10. So it'd be about a cut of about $150,000 a year. They're trying to make it up on the other end with increase in weighted per pupil and, a higher per pupil payment. But if they just go per pupil, eventually that's gonna hurt us, because if we ever lose enrollment, it'll help the big schools that are gaining enrollment, but not the small schools if they're losing it all.
So what's gonna change? Is there changes that were being talked about?
Mr. Severson, in that legislative update you sent us,
Yep.
it says in the bill that it is just the small school weighting factors for districts with less than 245 students.
Yep.
But we don't have less than 245.
No.
So,
That's what they're looking at this point. I mean, how they're going to adjust those weighted per pupil units. At this point, it wouldn't affect us. I mean, we wouldn't receive anything extra. But we're on that, I mean, we're on the top of the list as far as, I think there's only one other school that's higher than we are for transition payments. Next year, at this point, we'll be fine. It'll start kicking in that next year and beyond, and that's a goal of the Budget and Finance Committee has received that information, and that will be one of their issues that they'll have to deal with, was how do we start, or how do we proceed from here to make those significant loss of revenue at this point. So if everything stayed the same, it'd be $150,000 cut each year, roughly $150,000 a year for 6 years, and then that final year would be around $100,000.
If the weighted factors,
If
everything stayed
the same.
status quo.
Yeah, if everything stayed the same.
So our weighting factors right now adjust, because in the bill it says, no, it says it would adjust in the bill, so what do you know, they stay the same? Like
We've got adjusted weighted factors now.
Yes.
They're
Okay.
going to look at them to try to minimize the effect.
Yeah.
That's what they're working on, is how they can adjust those weighted factors.
'Cause it-
We are adjusted right now.
Yeah, they're dealing with, what they said, Lindsay, how many schools were transitioned? Do you remember?
94.
94 schools are transition schools. So they're trying to figure out how to soften the blow, so to speak, so that we don't get hit with that total each year. But so far, a lot of the things that they've talked about, raising the per pupil payment would probably, if we lose kids, it would make up for the kid we lost, basically. Then the weighting factors, depending on how that all shakes out. Because if they leave it at 245, we're just over that. So yeah, that's on the budget and finance have got that. We've talked about some of the things, and we just need to do formal things as far as going forward, what we're gonna do. 'Cause with the, depending, and another thing depends on the ESSER funds, and what they say we're getting, how many,
Well,
they're
the
estimating.
the second phase, which is what was approved in December, we're at right around $250,000. If the third phase gets approved, which I believe that bill was signed today, they said it would be 3 to 4 times the $250,000 additional.
So, looking at that, if we estimate that puts us in fairly good shape.
Depending on what we
Depending on
use
what
it
you
for.
can
How they decide to get it. It's gonna be hard for us to spend $1 million. We have to build houses.
It's gonna amount to like regulation.
And that's what it's coming down to.
Here's $1 million, but if you can't use it for this,
Yeah, give it back.
yeah, give it back.
And there's
As far as
a
going-
training tomorrow talking about the changes that have already made, ESSER 1 and ESSER 2.
So that will, it'll alleviate some of our issues. We'll be able to use some of that money in other areas. So we'll soften that first blow, but then depending on what we use it for, how long we have to use it, those will be all things that we'll have to cycle. That's what it might solid footing.
Any other questions? We say once we get to more of the end of the legislative session, see where we're at.
Yeah.
Policy committee report.
And we've got some of the comments on there, but we talked about online learning. We talked about some online learning. The committee recommends that the only time we allow online learning is if we don't offer the courses. So if there's not, if we don't have a certain thing, then they would be able to use the online. We talked about remote learning, which at this point is not an option because Bergam's order expires at the end of May, so unless something comes up with that, we've got early graduation, we've got policies in there, and that we're gonna look at tonight. I'm not sure what changes we made on that, for sure. We'll look at it. And I know what we talked about was that for graduation purposes, or for student we don't have it in there, but that would be what we would, what that was, this is also pulled up. 6 credits for grade 9/11. We talked about work placement options, which Derek went over, we'd have to, we'd be sitting down with them and do some things with that. And then we also, we talked about a waiver, I just wrote this up and I can, I'll send it out to you and see if this is what we want to have, something close enough to the business liability, instead of putting a policy in effect here. Like I said, fully understand that it's changed the outreach, participating in the activity, held in or on Martin County North, not encouraging voluntarily assume all the risk of exposure to or illness or injury from the infectious disease, and notwithstanding the release of Martin County from all liability. Instead of having a policy, because the policy basically dealt more with COVID than it was. And I do have Tom on here, and I think that's something that we talked about that, I think that would be the way now. I think what I did was the juniors, and then we started, they're gonna do the prom in December. And so they need to send a contract down to Kirby now. And we didn't see any issue with it, but we thought we better just mention it tonight and see if there was anything that they need to do or we need to do. Yeah, prom and post on all. Well, I think something I could, Emily kept coming in and telling me that they had to come to somebody told her that they had to come to the board. And I don't know who it was, and so I just want to make sure that the board knows that this is happening, so afterwards, they don't come back and say, why?
Would you make a motion then?
Do we need an
I really
agreement, is
think
there
we
any
need a motion,
agreement we need or
we've
anything?
we've never made a motion for prom before, that's why we I don't think we need a motion.
Are we doing anything if liability
Contract.
That would be us, right?
Oh, that would be great. We would have to supply it. You know, and
So I think we're Brett, are we got any liability off campus?
They break it, they buy it?
well, I mean, I think that would probably, would be that they put in there that the junior class is responsible for it. But, I mean, I guess we've had proms off campus, we have all the time and never had an issue with it. We used to go on the riverboat, we did places in Bismarck and Hamden.
So then if there was any damage, it would just come out of that junior class's account to pay for. It wouldn't come from the school, wouldn't.
Okay.
So that was just, and I've got it down there.
I guess that's where we would be at, if that's what you're thinking, JR.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, yeah, because when I met with them, there was, oh, we can't, whatnot, and I told them, yeah, you can. But you have to be able to pay for the place, you have to be able to cover all costs, getting the same chaperones, doing the same things. And I advised them, you also need to get a contract, because there was talk of, well, they'll decorate, they'll do this stuff for this. You have to get all of that stuff in a contract, in writing, so that you know what you're paying for and expecting from them, so that if it doesn't happen the way that it should, you have something to fall back on, not just going, well, they told us this stuff. And I know Mr. Purcell's been working with them, because he brought the contracts to Mr. Severson and I, and we're like, that's a little vague, we need to change some things. Took it back to them, got it more in depth,
Okay.
as far as that goes.
They just need to make that payment. We made it sure that we did it for tomorrow, because then we could make sure that nobody had any issues.
Anybody have any?
Brett, got any?
I don't know, it sounds like fun, but
Do you guys have anything you wanna say, or, I mean, are you guys okay with, I mean, just going forward?
Yeah,
Okay.
we started meeting and have stuff planned
Yeah.
and have all the chaperones in place already and everything, so.
And then their post-prom is gonna be, or after
At the
prom is gonna
bowling
be
alley.
at the bowling alley, and so they would just continue there. That was one of the things that Mr. Purcell talked about, was if they had it here and had to load buses and drive to Hannaford, you know, now we're supplying bus drivers and
Yeah.
everything else, so it just made sense if they're gonna do it there, just to do everything.
Is there a separate contract
Good
with
for the
bowling
community.
alley?
That's after prom.
That's
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 after-
post-prom, that has nothing to do with this.
That's
one.
the
That's
junior
that's-
parents, they take care of that.
Yeah.
School
Yeah,
doesn't.
so they would draw, if they needed to do anything, they would draw that contract up with the after prom.
Who runs the after prom?
Junior parents.
Junior parents, right there.
You got a little ways to go yet.
After this year, I retire.
There you go.
I'm done.
4 years.
No.
Okay, well, thank you.
Okay, so other than that, I think that we should be fine there on the policies. We'll do
You guys
the
ready?
other ones up there.
Yeah.
Building and grounds.
Okay, we met in building grounds. The only thing we've got to do in the strategic plan, that we've got to put together a task force. It says a task force of board members, administrators, and community members. So we've got the building and grounds committee, so we've got the 4 there. We would have our 3 administrators. We would include Bud, there'd be 4 of us. And then, how do we want to pick the community members? We want to send out a notice to, if we get 10 people, how many do we want, and how do we cut it down?
I can't even get one for the communication committee. I mean, Mike graciously volunteered, so right now it's Mike and I. So, I mean,
I think maybe just schedule one and put it out there and see who comes maybe.
So
Then
just
if
put the
we-
schedule meeting and say, we're looking for community members that would like to.
Or say
be
we're
on
gonna
the-
task force on this, and then if it goes further, we can weed them down if we got a lot of them there.
The task force will meet on such and such a day, and if you were interested in representing the community.
We're
please
giving some
attend.
input to show, I mean, that's my thought, I don't know.
I'm gonna start asking people, so.
Okay.
So
I'll
I mean,
send
we can,
something out there.
and we can talk to people too, say, this is coming if you're
Yeah.
thinking about it.
Yeah, if there's anybody you know that's interested.
Just,
in
and
something
then
like
just set a
this.
time. what
Just
would-
right, lunch will be served, they'll show up.
Okay?
So Mike, when we had that committee meeting, you know, we were talking about setting money aside and stuff for our heat pumps and all that.
Yep.
Does Melissa's stuff that she talked about tonight fall under the building?
Well, I think that's probably going COVID money.
Those switches and stuff?
Yeah.
Could
Would that be
is
part of the
gonna be okay
building or
for
no?
COVID? Well, didn't
It's
that-
Well,
all
to
up
see.
in the air now, it changes sometime tomorrow, they.
But it
supposedly
could,
are gonna
you're right,
update
it
us,
could be,
so.
could be building
Yeah, we
or.
could use- we
yeah.
could-
I know
building
they
fund.
for sure said if you're gonna spend $500 or $5,000 or more on capital improvements, it now has to be approved by the state.
Yes.
I know that change is coming.
But like if we got COVID money, them are, like Melissa said, them are 8 years old already, maybe.
Yeah.
You know, like we said, the heat pumps are nothing wrong with them, maybe buy one, get one on hand, but her stuff, she wants to get changed and if
Yeah,
we,
and we could use building fund for that stuff, I believe, that's all part of the.
We can, that'd be part of the discussion when we get how much we wanna
Yeah.
be setting aside in that building fund, that's
Yeah.
what we talked about.
Yep.
You know, how we're gonna,
Which
Kinda get-
line item to put it on?
yes,
Yeah.
okay.
And we probably can go another year with those and just start the process, but if it comes to a point where we would have the money, say with like with the COVID funding that we had, let's go ahead and do it.
Put it on the radar, you're
That's
saying.
something that's gonna have to be
Oh,
happening.
yeah, you have to budget that, because those aren't cheap, so
No.
now when you're replace all of
I
them.
mean, you're probably, yeah, it's kind of 40,000, well, I shouldn't give a price right now.
They're not cheap,
Yeah,
let's put it that
it
way.
is a big expense.
Yeah, so that's something we should probably budget out, especially with,
so that's like
Funding
we're,
changes.
we talked, when we were at that meeting, how we're gonna start planning ahead, what kind of building fund balance we really need
Right.
there, and how we're gonna step it up.
And
So-
that just just ties right into the budget and finance and how
So,
we met.
so when do you think you wanna try to do this, or you're gonna just come up with a?
I can, well, do we wanna, building grounds, you wanna give me dates that you guys are available?
When did we want, when in that plan is it supposed to
I
be
think
done?
it says by the spring of 2021, I believe, I think it's coming up. They wanted the task force, I don't know if they wanted, if we had in there that it was the task force.
Well, at least we started on
Yeah.
it or something, yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
So I would say we'd wanna meet either toward the end of March or early part of April.
Okay.
So I can send out to the building grounds people and find out what dates.
So
get
what
some
dates,
and
yeah,
throw some dates out there and then we'll make it.
unless you guys have a different, I think, let's advertise, see if anybody is interested in coming, I mean. And talk to some, if you see some that might be interested in it, tell them to watch for it. Yeah.
June of 2021.
June of 2021, okay.
Mhm.
That'll give us
Oh, completing the
Yeah.
plan.
By June of 2020, it
So
is.
Okay.
that would be a revision in our,
yeah,
When we get started here in April,
Okay.
being that we get behind on that, so.
right, okay.
Okay.
So
And
you'll
then
send
that
out
just-
to us and we'll come up with a
okay,
date.
And then that just tied into budget and finance, cause that's gonna be a portion of it too, how much we're gonna spend and what allocations are we gonna have, so.
Okay.
That would be it for that.
Old business, we got an update on election process. That's something you have, Lindsay?
Yep, I just need to have a precinct and polling place along with polling hours approved. I assume the precinct and polling place will be the
Here.
school again. In the past, my understanding was the polling hours were 7 AM to 7 PM. Last year, you guys approved 8 AM to 7 PM because I live out of town and to get stuff here to actually have the election and have things open in Valley City. You had one with 8 AM.
Okay.
Start to 7 PM.
Any thought of changing what we had last year? That worked?
I don't know, we didn't have to do it.
We didn't have to do it, that's why it's all mail-in. Yeah. Oh,
We assumed it would've worked
Yeah.
last year, we
Yeah.
should do it this year.
Okay.
So we would need a motion for the polling place and times.
So moved
So that's,
at 8 AM,
8 AM?
8 a.m.
Barnes
Seven.
County School.
alright.
7 closing,
Yes.
okay.
Okay,
Second? Roll call.
Mike,
Yes.
Rob,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Chad,
Yep.
Brent,
Yes.
Michelle,
yes.
Cindy,
Yes.
Brett,
Yes.
Lee.
Yes. Transportation discussion, you wanna take that, or?
Yeah, what we talked about on that, we had a meeting the other night with transportation committee. We talked about the bus routes and what the recommendation of the group was, that we would leave as is for this year and have the transportation committee designated to come up with some alternative plans to deal with a little more of the flexibility with the bus routes. And as we talked about, not everybody was on the same page with it and didn't know for sure what the plan right now. It talks about, and we probably have to clarify a little bit, it says students can only be picked up or dropped off the same bus route. Any change in pickup or location will require a different mode of transportation. But at present, they can get off on any stop on their route. And the board is going to, the transportation committee is gonna take a look at that and make some recommendations on how to change that, how to update it. And then we have the bus purchase coming up.
But that's the thought we had, Alyssa, you guys have some other
So
stuff.
how-
We wanna get back together and not make a rash decision right tonight, look at some ideas. We bounced around some ideas to look at changing, but I think we kinda wanted to feel them out and think about them a little bit and have another little meeting, right?
So somebody else had some more input on it
Yep.
or ideas that we could.
We're looking to try to be more flexible, but just
Right.
where we wanna go with it.
So that, you're saying that any stop on the route, so if little Johnny gets off, Susie can get off of Johnny at his place, if that
It's on the
works.
same route.
But just because he drives by grandma's house, they can't get
Not
off?
adding stops,
We're not adding stuff, just, okay,
just any stop
Okay.
on the route.
any stop on the road, not just any house
Yeah.
on the road.
Yeah.
And they can do that now.
Which are
They can do that now?
Yes.
Okay.
So will there be changes for this year yet, or for next year?
Next year. that was the committee's recommendation, was we stay with the current plan, and then next year look at ideas on how we're gonna make it better, how we're gonna implement a new flexibility, or however you want to term it.
Is there a need for clarification of where we're at now currently?
Well, that's what I said, as long
Yes,
as,
there
as long
is,
as we're, that, after tonight, I was gonna send out an email to everybody on, so that we were on the same page, because I know Brent said last night, he didn't even know about this either. And if you weren't aware of it, it didn't get communicated well, and we just need to make sure we get that out there.
Will you include in that there's gonna be changes to the overall?
They're gonna look at
next
changes.
year?
For next year, yes, yep, that'll be part of the email, it'll be that, all I'll put in there is that, at this point, the Transportation Committee is recommending that we stay as is for the rest of the year. They will be meeting to make changes to starting in the fall of 2021.
And then a clarification of what it is
Yep,
for.
yep, and you can put it at you can stop anywhere on your route, yep, yep. Because like I said, I mean, it just didn't get communicated very well on that, and so now we need to make sure that we've got that, so.
Okay.
And then, like I said, then it was the bus and then baseball, so should be good with that.
Okay, then we'll move to second reading of policies that we tabled last.
So now we've got, non-curricular use of district property. Okay, what we talked about, the change, I believe, was basically what we changed was that in accordance with the Equal Access Act, the district will grant groups access to the building. It doesn't have to be, board approval. Okay. The only question that Mike had was with, does the policy committee need to do something with, like some, or even just myself, with administrative regulations on what each one. When we go through the facility use agreement, we can look at that and see if that's okay to use as our
Because I think the first
regulations.
one that you got in your left hand says that you will have,
Yep.
So the question
Develop
is-
facility use regulations.
so the thought was, does Mike have to have some guidelines so we know what he's
Yep.
agreeing or
Or is it-
disagreeing to?
Or is it just the facility use the agreement?
So no, Mr. Lindahl used to have administrative guidelines, say when the board doesn't have to approve it, we know how he's deciding if it's approved or disapproved based on how he's making his decision. That was the question I asked you, because it
Yep.
said, do you
Yep.
develop them and they're
Yeah,
not
it says-
in there?
And my thought was we use the facility use agreement, but if we need to make it more definitive or whatever, we can do that.
I don't know, I would think the facility use pretty well lays out what
But
we
that was just, the
expect
question,
of
because
the-
we didn't want to come back to the whole board for a lot of
Yeah.
these, that was why we tabled it.
Yeah, because you've got people that are calling and saying, can we get in the gym, so they will have to fill this out before they could do it.
Yeah, or let's have a meeting
Yeah.
on this week, or,
Yeah.
yeah.
So that'd be the only thing that we just, that was the change, was that we took out to have to be approved by the school board. Rest of it stayed the same, so it'd be adopted tonight if we have the second reading tonight, and it'd be adopted.
We're all right with that, we make a motion to approve the second reading of non-curricular use of district property policy.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay.
I'll second.
By Rob. Roll call.
Mike,
Yes.
Rob,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Chad,
Yep.
Brent,
Yes.
Michelle,
Yes.
Cindy,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Brett.
Yes.
Other one's the waiver.
And
That was with the addition of guidelines, is that what you said?
No,
We were
Just
just
as-
question, that was like, if we needed them, but I don't think anybody really said
Okay,
we
so
need.
that can be posted to
Yes,
our
this-
website.
Yeah.
This goes on as a
Yeah.
policy.
Yep, Mr. Severson, he'll handle that stuff.
Actually, Ms. Fitz posted it.
Post it, he's talking about it, the regular.
Oh.
When people call in and wanna know it, he'll deal
We'll
with
let
it.
Mrs. Bitts do that if she wants to.
Yeah.
You can just send me the document.
And then the waiver of liability, that was that statement that I read earlier. We would rather not, we'd rather not have that. The policy committee said they really would rather not put that in there. It was basically put in for COVID. At this point, I think we're not beyond COVID, but we're in a different place than we were when that policy.
So do
was-
we need a motion to deny
Well, I
the
don't know if
second
we want to
reading?
just table it,
Or what do we need to do? Because we're not gonna do it, right?
No, so, That would that, I don't know if you.
Would tabling die or kill it then?
Well, that's what I don't, I mean,
Or could
Or
we
we
just
just-
make a
Well,
motion
if
to
we never
deny
bring
that?
it
just to
back, it
kill it.
will.
Yeah, yeah, so, I mean, you could just say that, make a motion that the waiver of liability, the first, we don't, proceed with the second
excluded,
reading or
yeah.
whatever.
I think that'd be just the way that we want to get rid of it.
Yeah.
Okay,
Cause that's how we
Yep.
done in other policies.
Yep.
So I'll make that motion to get rid of the waiver of liability for COVID.
I'll second.
Lindsay, roll call.
Mike,
Yes.
Rob,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Chad,
Yes.
Brent,
Yes.
Michelle,
Yes.
Cindy,
Yes.
Brett,
Yes.
Lee.
Yes.
Then you got the facility use agreement.
yep, and that one, and what we did on the facility use agreement, we added the superintendent, as the first sign, then the board president, and then the club representative. And the reason we did this, because if we're not using the board to approve, the only reason that we're gonna have the board president sign is so that somebody on the board knows about it, and if they wanna notify the rest of the board, they can do that. Where before it was the board, we thought it doesn't hurt to keep his name on the, I shouldn't say, but whoever's the board president at the time, to sign off on that and date it, and then that way they were aware of it, instead of it just.
I would like, when we make that motion, that the board authorizes the board president to be able to sign that.
Okay, there you go.
Because otherwise, I have no authorization to sign for the board.
And that's like to use the school for
Yes.
a tournament on the weekend or
Yeah.
something, right? Okay, so you know it in advance or, yeah, okay.
But realistically, I've got no power unless the board says for me to sign something. So I would like to be part of that motion that the board president, whoever that may be, is authorized to sign that
Okay.
agreement after the superintendent.
Okay.
So, need that motion?
I would like that to be added with that,
I'll
yes.
make that motion to, have Mr. Severson sign it and the board president at the time, whomsoever that may be.
I'll second.
Roll call.
Mike,
Yes.
Rob,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Chad,
Yes.
Brent,
Yes.
Michelle,
Yes.
Cindy,
Yes.
Brett,
Yes.
Lee.
Yes.
So nothing needs to be changed on that.
No, just the.
No, just the, no, nothing has to be changed, just the motion is that I have authorization to sign that.
Okay, I didn't notice the early graduation one isn't on here. Are we still approving that, or should we put that on next month?
Down here.
That's
It's
down.
down
It's
there,
on new business.
down below.
Oh,
COVID,
Set the alert to update the other
COVID
policies,
discussion,
so.
leave, and learning plan.
Yeah, so what we talked about with the COVID leave was if, we've allowed the staff to go get shots if they choose to. So then that would be a professional leave, school function, however you want to term it. If they were to get symptoms where they were not able to, be in school the next day or be in school, we would allow them to use that 10 days of COVID leave.
Well, we've already extended that, so if anybody's got any of that left, then I'm
Yeah.
sure they could use it.
That's what we decided, I mean, 'cause
Yep.
the question came up, when I get my second shot, if I can't come to school, is it sick leave or COVID leave? And the recommendation was that they'd be able to use those 10, if they've got.
If they have their days,
Yes, they
yes.
could use those 10
Yep.
days.
Because that's, we extended it to the end of the year, so yeah.
Okay,
Couldn't they even use the COVID leave to go get the shot?
They decided that we wouldn't have to do
no, we
anything to
wouldn't
get
have
the
to use
shot.
that, that's just, they don't have to use anything, they would work that out with their principals to be gone, and when they come back, they take over for their classroom.
That works for all the other staff that would go?
Yes.
So that
Everybody
nobody's
go
gonna
all-
get docked
no.
if they go get a shot?
No, yeah, we talked about that,
Yeah.
because I know that Deb had a question on that, and that was,
Yeah.
anybody that got their shot, if they were supposed to be here at 8 and they got their shot that time, they just.
And lost
they just
hours, they get
clocked
them
in
back.
that-
Okay.
that time.
How many going at one time?
Well, we've got 15, I
We had
think.
7 on the elementary side last Wednesday.
They already did it,
Yeah,
the
they did
first
their
one.
first shot.
So
yeah,
how
they
many
were-
are gonna have the second shot, say on the 31st?
They're all.
Oh, it'd be all 7 of them again.
There's
how
more
many-
than 7.
how many
There's
is
more
it?
than 7, now
But-
there's
but-
73.
But I mean,
How many are scheduled for the shot on the 31st that you know of?
7 on my side.
4 on mine.
And I know that there's 2 non-certified staff.
Because they will come out to the school if you do them in 11s. They'll come right here, nobody'd have to leave.
Oh.
And they would do it on a Thursday, they won't have to do it on a
Teresa
Wednesday.
told me that they.
Teresa
were-
told me they come in 11s. They would come out here.
I'll text her, cause she told me that they were gonna, after the mass ones, then they would start going to schools.
She was in the yard the other day and I asked, do they ever go to schools? Cause they done it, they said, if you can get 11, their bunches come in 11. So they can come out to the school, she could come out on Thursday, the day after, even the first, they could do 11. If you can do them in 11,
Yeah.
11 could do them right here.
We got over 11, cause I think there was.
Somebody would have to go, but they could do them in 11s. I'd touch base with her,
So
cause
two would have to still go.
Yep.
Well, we have
Yeah.
I thought we
13,
had,
two would
I
still.
thought well, there might be even more.
It'd
Well,
be
I'd touch,
multiples of 11, so 11 or 22 or.
yeah,
33.
in 11s, yes.
Okay.
But touch base, 'cause she
I
said,
will,
let her
yes,
know, and they
definitely.
could do that, and they would come, she would come right here and do it.
Okay, cause yeah, that, when we had talked before, she had told me that they would start coming out to schools after they do the mass ones.
Right.
But if they'll do it in 11.
She told me they do them in 11, she told me that yesterday. But they need to know so they can change those
Yep,
ones that are supposed to come to the hack or
Yep.
whatever could do
yep,
them.
I will call her in the morning and.
Yep.
and
I talked Teresa was in the yard, she said they do them in 11s.
Good,
11
good to
taps.
know. There we go.
Just
We
make
do
sure
that.
you got a
That
lot of
was-
subs on hand for the next day because.
But if we do them on
Well,
Thursday, then we don't have to worry about the
On
sub.
Thursday, we have no school
Yeah.
for 4 days.
Oh, okay.
That's where we discussed that we
Which I
don't,
don't want our teachers to be sick over
Yeah,
a
because
long
if they-
weekend either, but that's how it fell when
That's
we
how it
lined
fell.
up at 12.
yeah.
And if it's anything like I had or some of the people I know, I wouldn't have been teaching the next day.
That's why I think it might be beneficial to try that and come on the Thursday.
We do have a projector on hand, just in case we need to watch.
But it's an option that she will come out for
Okay,
11.
perfect, I'll get ahold of her.
Because
That would be nice. And if, like I said, if it's on that Thursday, it would be the day before break.
Cause she said Thursday, Friday, she said, well, I can even come Friday. I said, well, Friday's like Good Friday, I don't think you're coming then. She, oh, no, I'm not gonna do that. But I touched base with her, cause she said she'd do it in 11s.
Okay,
Okay, so, plan talk?
Yep.
Okay. If you look at our COVID plan, under physical distancing, there's a bullet point that says cancel field trips, assemblies, and large group gatherings, and limit non-essential visitors. You guys did approve visitors, but that's still in there, I noticed. I'd make a recommendation to get rid of that. Under Plan B, in-person learning with restrictions, there's a bullet point of no field trips, large group gatherings, and assemblies. Get rid of that. And under school breakfast and lunch, it's.
What are large group gatherings? Dodgeball?
Like dodgeball?
no, that wasn't the large group gathering,
They were in small
Small
groups.
groups.
I'm just question.
One at a time, one at a time.
They were in cohorts.
But it would have been like prom, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We already had said they could have prom.
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys already did.
So we need to get it out of the way.
We get on
Yeah,
plan,
so
yeah.
this
is just
This
this
motion will clear that up.
Yeah.
And then under school breakfast and lunch, it says under the second portion, which would be, in school restrictions, that breakfast would be delivered to elementary classrooms. And I would change that to pre-K, 2 would be eating in the commons and grab and go for 3 through 12.
Works for me.
And then the next part is just a frequently asked question. It did say for the fall semester, we'll restrict all visitors. And since you guys approved visitors, I would just add that we would have them follow the same guidelines. So masking if they're here during school hours, etc.
That's for this year yet?
For this year, yes. So you guys have already kind of approved some things on the side, and so it's just clearing up the language of the plan. The new things would be the field trips and the breakfast. But I would just make the motion to approve it all.
So those little ones you wanna bring into the commons, that, instead of going to the rooms, that's one of the changes you're talking.
Yes. The 4 small, because we sit them in the 4 corners of the lunchroom, so they're in their cohorts. So I know all elementary teachers would love it if they could all eat down there, but with keeping them separate, if we even just start with those young kids.
Right. What's the plan on the field trips? You said you had kind of an idea how you would run those?
Well, I mean, if it was more than just a grade level or group, like if we weren't intermingling, masks wouldn't be a big deal because that's how we're running our classrooms anyways. And then, of course, we would, depending on the field trip, if you go places, they're actually restricting the amount of people there, so you end up being one of the fewer groups. But as we're planning them moving forward, we would make sure that they follow guidelines of cohorting and
Okay, so right now you're just wanting to have a permission to go to a field
to
trip?
start planning,
Okay,
yes,
okay.
because I know. end of
Ability
the
to
year.
plan a field trip.
Right,
Yes.
okay, okay.
And one example is I want to take the peer leaders at the end of the year. And we would probably have them mass because last year's peer leaders didn't get to do it, so I would like to take both groups of peer leaders. To do their field trip and then, you know, the house celebration and then the individual classroom field trips. So everything would be planned following COVID guidelines. But
Okay, all right, so this is just the permission to start planning and looking at field trips.
Would we do them all together, Mike? Like the breakfast and the field trips?
Oh, yeah,
Well-
yeah.
Oh, I think we make a motion.
I think
for
they
that.
can do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, I just say
Okay.
we clean up the whole thing that
Yes,
you just recommended.
yes.
Yeah.
I make a.
Does you need
motion.
JR's, with the field trip cover what you need for senior class?
I believe so, yes.
Yep, okay.
Yes.
So can I make a motion to change the plan with
With-
all those things that you just said?
And I'll
Amend
second.
the plan.
You gotta say every one of them.
Let's see, with
I mean, I
the
absolutely can.
breakfast for pre-K through second grade in the common.
To eliminate the field trip assembly
trip,
large
yep.
group gathering restrictions,
Yes, that,
to add visitors
and visitors.
with the
with
required
restrict-
precautions.
Yes, that.
I second that.
Cindy already beat you to it.
Sitting-
Oh, sorry.
Snooze, you
I got-
lose.
What-
Do we need to, do we have
Can
to
I have
say
one
this?
question?
Yeah.
Why is it just pre-K through second?
Well,
it's not
because
a
they're the
third.
little ones that make the biggest, well,
Biggest mess?
I don't, I know, but typically the littler ones, they're
The most
harder to.
difficulty,
Yeah, I mean,
Grab their food and go, you mean?
yeah,
Okay.
and the mess and the time and everything, so what we would do is the ones that wanna eat breakfast, and maybe we could do elementary, because honestly, not as many people eat breakfast, we could always have them mask and walk in the gym prior.
It gets to be more people out there, because you're also bringing all the buses in at the same
Yeah.
time, so it
Yeah.
does get congregated out there a little bit.
They don't congregate, they walk
No, but I
through and
mean,
go right to
If
the
we had
rooms.
everybody
Like
out there,
the
but-
everybody in
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, and so we have to make it clear, maybe less tables, you
Yeah.
know, cause,
I was just wondering why you picked, but that makes sense. I got it. Gotcha.
you come volunteer for a day walking those pre-cares, do breakfast and back in to eat their lunch or their breakfast in the room, and you'll see why I recommend it.
Question though, do you want us to amend that in a way that
I
you
would say
could open that up later for the other classes, or do
I
you just want it
think
to
that
limit
would
it
be
right
it.
now?
I think that would be a fabulous idea, because if we have less kids eating, I don't know, say there's 4 kids who consistently eat for pre-K, we could
You could bring
socially
in,
distance them
instead,
with.
you know, just instead of pre-K through second, you know, you could bring in some third graders or.
Couldn't we open it up
Just
to the
a-
whole elementary at the principal's discretion?
Right.
You can
Yeah,
limit it to
depending on
second
how full
grade
the
now,
tables
and
are.
you can
Yeah.
Change it however you want.
yeah.
I wouldn't say principal's discretion, I'd maybe say discretion of,
Administration.
well, not necessarily, but
Let's
depending
put it
on
on
the
the
numbers,
principal.
or, you know what I mean, cause it could fluctuate or vary.
That would
But
be at
that's
your
the-
discretion.
But that's your
That's your
discretion.
discretion.
Because how you dealing with, you're going out in the halls, everybody's got a mask on.
Yeah.
And that's a little group, now you're putting
Yeah.
a bigger group together, you know, so I mean,
Yeah.
how, what's the differentiation there? I just don't understand if, you could get them all in there and they're eating, but they walk from here to here and we gotta have the
Well, it
mask on.
depends, cause some buses are coming at 8:10, they would sit in on their assigned tables, we could honestly have a table sanitized, and the bus that comes in at 8:30 would look a little bit different than, you know, it just looks different with coverage, cause typically there's a teacher that covers a recess duty in the morning, and the other teachers have a prep, and they rotate. Well, this year, you know, all the teachers that were coming in prior to contracted time, because they don't have any extra time. I mean, buses get here, kids are walking into their rooms, so their supervision starts. So, honestly, I like the flexibility of discretion, because we don't really know what it's going to look like until we do it.
So will those group be supervising out there then? Or are
Um,
they gonna go, teachers go to the classroom and the kids will be
Well,
out there?
You know, obviously, we would have supervision out here for that, and so that would be things that I would need to plan out, and we could do a rotation and walk with the other kids in the gym, or that, cause some kids don't eat breakfast. So
No.
we just have to come up with a sense of normalcy when we do get them going in there, of what works, and it might be, okay, that was horrible, let's regroup and talk about it.
So we're gonna amend the,
Amendment.
amended plan.
To the discretion of
Discretion of
administration.
administration.
Okay.
Just for elementary?
Aren't you glad I had a
For
question?
all.
Yeah, I think for elementary though, right?
Let them all have it. It's at their discretion if it's bad or not.
Well, but if you know, the elementary at least has a plan to walk in the gym.
Right.
The high school, you got 3, 4, 10 high school kids, and then the rest are,
Well,
Well, just don't let them. I mean,
high
that's,
school kids eat a lot fast. Well, some of them are milking it, I'm
You've
sure,
seen
but.
my kitty forever.
I don't see anytime soon of changing and having the high school kids start staying out there.
So just keep it to elementary for right now?
Yep.
Okay.
And we'll start with just the 4 and see how it goes.
Okay. Have a motion and a second.
Mike,
Yes.
Rob,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Chad,
Yep.
Brent,
Yes?
Michelle,
Yes.
Cindy,
Yes.
Brett,
yes.
Lee.
Yes.
Anything else under there? JR, everything covered what you needed? Yep.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. New business superintendent evaluation. Talked with Mike here the other night a little bit about it. I sent her out so you guys could look at it. What we need to go through is if there's anything, I don't know if any of you others listened to that superintendent presentation, evaluation. You look through these, if there's any, once we approve this, these are all the board comments, not just individuals, they are the board comments. So if there's anything you would like changed, added, subtracted, or whatever, this would be the time to do it. If you take it as is, they become board comments, not individuals. So you understand that? And we have all areas 9-0 except the one is 8-1. So we do need to look at fiscal and decide if it's all satisfactory or if there is a there's an 8-1 vote on that one. Based on evaluations.
So when you're filling that out and you put a comment in, you're putting a comment in for the board?
As we accept this.
As we accept it, yeah.
If you accept this, this is the board's comments.
Unless you gotta cross it off first.
Or you delete or add or whatever, yes. Just so you know that, that's what we've always done. These are board comments once we've accepted them. So if there's something of anybody's comments that you, as a group, don't like, that will be voted on. If you want me in or out, that's. Which has always been that way, it just, and we've always kind of just took them as they are, but I want you to understand, we should go through each one of these individually, A, B, C. If there's any comments that could be added after you've seen other people's, that you think could be changed, or you want to see something different done, or any type of plan, anything, we can do that.
Is this the meeting to vote on that?
Yes.
Can I have a hard copy of that?
Well, I can give you the one I got that we're gonna hand to Mike.
I wasn't aware that that's, when we had these, that that's what we needed to do, I guess.
Yeah. Once we do them, it's compiled and then it's board comments. They become board comments. Yes. Because they get filed in his personnel file, he has a copy and one goes into file. So they become the board's evaluation. That's why we vote on the composite. So, general, the board relations is all satisfactory, a 9-0. pretty much. And a lot of these, like I talked to Mike last time, are a little bit better grade-wise. I mean, did you look at them too, Mike, a little bit?
And over that.
Score-wise, majority are increased from the November evaluation.
All your grades going up then?
Yeah, I studied more,
Very good.
more time. prepared.
So we can go individually, as a whole, or however you as the board want to. We need to approve the evaluation.
I think the last one you just proved.
It was approved as it was, and then just then talked about the one that was
Yep,
not
the one
100%.
area, Yeah, and
Yep.
it's got approved as, I mean.
As all
the whole
satisfactory or
evaluation,
whatever,
the whole-
yes.
That the evaluation was all satisfactory.
When we visited, there was nothing you really seen that,
Nothing
when we
was,
talked
I
that,
mean, these are, I mean, it's pretty much the same comments as, general, and, those are things that we're looking at, so.
And I'm gonna say it again, I feel like this is just like this continuous work in progress, this whole thing that we do. That's how I feel. Am I wrong about that? Did everyone, hello?
No, it's pretty much a work in
Well, I
progress.
just feel like we've done so many changes over the last 2 years, really, when you look back. I mean, we've made so many changes and additions, and so, I mean, it just seems like to be ever changing, and then COVID hit, and we added all that money, and it was like, I just feel like there's never really an end, it's just.
it's not, it's every job's got an evaluation process, and it's, like you say,
It's
it's
never
moving.
ending. You
Yes.
just, it is a,
Yeah.
it's not, yeah.
There's nothing glaring that we've seen, we talked about, there's nothing that's really, here we gotta work at this, that we can see. All of them are things that,
That we talked about before.
yeah, good comments and things we've worked on, and, yeah. Did anybody listen to that tutorial on the superintendent evaluation? Okay.
I was at work.
They explained the whole process, and that's what they do at, like your new member thing, we'll talk about that a little bit too, but yeah. How it has to be done by century code and how you gotta do it, and yeah, it's structured, yes. But that's one thing they wanted the board president to emphasize, these, once we approve them, are board comments, they're all our comments when they become board approved.
Because initially, my understanding was whatever you write, you need to be willing to
Back
Stand
up.
by, yeah.
stand by, and now you're asking us to stand by.
By
it.
everybody.
The only, what they're saying is, if you're a discrepancy in them, if one's saying, I'm using an example, so it's not in here. He's doing a fantastic job. And the next guy said, this is the worst job I've ever seen.
Oh,
Well, how can that be in one grouping?
One group,
That's what they say, you gotta decide what is
Right.
it.
okay,
We don't have that.
no,
That's where they're saying if you got something that's totally contradictory, one's gotta be gone. Because if it got to a non-renewal, he'll say, well, these said right here, this is a board thing, and it says the best job has ever been done. It's in my evaluation.
right,
That's the part where they say if you wanna take something out that's contradictory. We don't have that.
yeah.
But there's always the opportunity to add, once you've seen other people's comments, that, oh yeah, I see that now, let's add this, or deduct something. It's more for a discrepancy, and in fiscal, we have a discrepancy, we have 8-1, so then we decide for sure, is it satisfactory or not? The majority vote says yes, but we have to clarify that, because when the final one comes in, it's gotta be satisfactory or unsatisfactory in each area. So. Am I explaining that as good as we can, Mike?
clear as mud. No, just kidding.
So we can do them individual by each category as a whole, but we do need to address fiscal, which is 8-1.
I think we do it as a whole.
Yeah.
Okay,
This is like we did last time.
Yeah.
that's what we did before, yep.
Need a motion.
Yep, we need a motion.
I'll make a motion, we approve the superintendent's valuation as is.
As all satisfactory?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a second to that?
I'll second it.
Okay, Chair. Roll call.
Mike,
Yes.
Rob,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Chad,
Yes.
Brent,
Yes.
Michelle,
Yes.
Cindy,
Yes.
Brett,
Yes.
Lee.
Yes.
afterwards, we'll both sign this, and one will go in, one's Mike's copy, and one Lindsay will put in the file.
Perfect, thank you.
So thanks, you're doing what we need to see getting done here.
All right, good deal.
Petition for recognition of appropriate negotiating unit.
So Mike,
Yes,
can we stop 1 second?
Yep.
Off the record?
yep. Well, we're taking.
Since you've been on the
Already
board,
paid.
since you've been on the board,
Yep.
have you had points where you never, where the board didn't agree on the valuation?
There would have been one
Well,
year
so-
when we had that one meeting, I think some things would have got pulled out or added one time. It would
Would've
have
got
been
it
still
to-
on here.
I mean, just so we would.
None of these guys have been here.
That's what I mean, just so
It
we
was
would
a
know.
few years back. There was a big, I think there would have been some things that would have been added and subtracted maybe at that
Where
one.
we'd had to vote on one way or the other, or what?
I think
That's
it
what I'm getting at.
would have been I think some things might have got took off or some things might have got added one time. We had a room full for the superintendent evaluation meeting.
Okay.
Yes.
I was just wondering.
Yep. Majority of the time, no.
Cause I seen it was on the agenda today and there was a lot of people walking in.
I noticed that too.
And I
We had it in
kinda,
that room
I
there.
kinda remember that, that's kinda why I brought it up, so everybody else
We
would.
had it in that room there and it was standing room only.
Yeah. Okay, just wanted to.
We're not there. Okay, petition, we need, it's posted, what do we need? We need just a motion to.
Just a motion to approve, and whoever wants the motion, I have it written here. This one has to be read for the recognition.
They have the
of
right amount of
appropriate
people signing
negotia-
it and everything else.
Well, we're not even approving that one
That one
yet.
yet?
We're
Okay.
approving the appropriate negotiating unit.
Unit.
That's separate from the recognition of representative organization.
So you want someone to read that?
That's
need
the
this motion.
motion that needs to be the first step.
Go for it, Brunner.
He doesn't have the cheaters
I
on.
should read it first.
You want me to hold it over here?
Okay, I'll make a motion that pursuant to the NDCC section 15.1-16-10, the Board of the Barnes County North School District recognizes as the appropriate negotiating unit all employees licensed to teach by the ESPB or approved to teach by the ESPB and employed primarily as classroom teachers.
Is there a second?
What he said.
I'll second. Lee, a second? Okay. Roll call on that.
Mike,
Yes.
Rob,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Chad,
Yeah.
Brent,
Yes.
Michelle,
Would you read it again? Yes.
Cindy,
Yes.
Brett,
Yes.
Lee.
Yes.
You beat me to it.
Now we move to the petition for recognition of representative organization.
Yep, so this one, you just have to, they all sign the list.
Mike, you didn't think.
It's at least 50% of the people. And just a motion to approve the recognition of representative organization. There's no official thing to read for that one.
Or if we don't recognize it.
Then you could look closer if you'd like. Might recognize it.
Yeah, we have to recognize,
I'm just saying, dude.
here's the list if you wanna see it.
So this is what now?
The teachers that are in the
The
negotiating unit.
representative organization, and it's signed. You don't know if you want that page too.
Okay, I make a motion, how do we,
Just
You
a
say make a
motion
motion.
to,
to approve the,
Yes.
Recognition of representative organization.
Are you guys all new to this process, or?
Yeah.
Yes.
The right
recognition of
ways to for the motions,
rep-
yes.
Oh, okay.
representative organization? I make a motion for
Yeah.
that.
Is there a second to that?
I'll second that.
Roll call.
Mike,
Yes.
Rob,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Chad,
Yep.
Brent,
Yes.
Michelle,
Yes.
Cindy,
Yes.
Brett,
Yeah.
Lee.
Yes.
So now that we've recognized it, posted it, we need to, what's our next step? We have to have them meet or extend within 30 days? Is that what?
Yep, you have to start negotiations within 30 days.
Okay. Or meet to extend
Mhm.
time, yeah. Okay. Okay, prom update, we've taken care of that. Open enrollment applications.
I have two of them. One is a kindergartner coming from Valley City, and the other, I don't know grade level, coming from Valley City.
Two coming from Valley City.
Same family?
No. One says siblings attend BCN, one says mom works at BCN.
I'll make a motion to
Approve.
approve.
I'll second it.
Second by Michelle. Roll call on open enrollment.
Mike,
Yes.
Rob,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Chad,
Yep.
Brent,
Yes.
Michelle,
Yes.
Cindy,
Yes.
Brett,
Yes.
Lee.
Yes. Bus bids.
Okay, we bid out that 14 passenger, low bid was I-State Trucks at $57,500. Harlow School Bus Service, their stock unit was $59,850. Hartley's was $60,225, and Harlow's Bus Service was the spec'd out one was $60,275.
Where was the first one from?
I-State Trucks, it used to be Trucks of Bismarck.
Oh, okay.
Is that what we always buy, Mike?
How much?
57.5.
That's one that they spec'd out, or what was that one?
That was a spec'd out one.
Spec'd out?
Yep.
So that's open enrollment.
The lowest one, yep, 57.5.
Students to come here or listed?
And they can have it to us in 2 weeks, lettered and everything.
So they have that?
Yep.
What do you hide?
And that's the bus for this,
Due to baseball.
but we were buying a bus.
We were buying a bus anyway.
We had got
Same one
budget
with
for a
the-
bus, yeah.
Same with the shorter one, just so that we had something for activities.
But it's not just for baseball.
No,
It's-
no.
We're gonna use it
this
for
one is
baseball.
The reason we're getting the small one now is to accommodate the baseball this summer, or this spring, and then we'll use it for whatever else, yes. No, it's not just a baseball bus.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure
Yeah.
everybody was
Yeah.
clear of that.
Yep, it's
It
not.
isn't one-dimensional bus.
Yeah.
Jesus,
We're gonna put-
25%.
We're gonna put
We'd have a
BCN
full size.
Dark,
baseball on
Yeah.
it.
dark
Big blue
chocolate.
buys,
Yeah.
But you don't have anyone to drive it.
So the low bid, 57.5. We would need a motion to
That
accept.
is, that 57.5, was that with our specs,
Yes,
right?
Yeah.
yep,
And how soon could they get that? Are they gonna
2
put that
weeks.
in one that had 2 weeks?
2
Okay.
weeks.
Oh, Brett.
What?
So I'll make the motion, we accept the low bid at 57.5 with
I trucks.
iTrucks
I-State trucks.
for the new 14 passenger bus.
I second.
Second by Rob. Roll call.
Mike,
Yes.
Rob,
Yes.
Eric, Chad, Brent,
Yes?
Michelle,
Yes.
Cindy,
Yes.
Brett,
Yes.
Lee.
Yes. Okay, that's approved. Amend the early graduation policy.
And basically, I think we wanted to know, I mean, it's staying current, and that Mr. Wilson has the ability to keep it at 6 for 9/12 and 5 for seniors, and then I think we kept it all the same, just,
That was the recommendation.
My question is, if we're amending it, but we're not changing anything?
Well, we wouldn't be amending it except for the date.
Oh,
That's
the
the only
date.
amendment is
Okay.
to update it, cause what was it, 2018
yeah,
prior?
I think so, 17.
So,
For,
We just wanted to make sure that we had the correct one on file, so I don't know if you.
I mean, is that
wanna
just the
amend it.
adoption date?
Yeah,
Because that wouldn't have to change, if we don't
no,
change
the
it.
adoption date wouldn't change, but the update would.
There says somewhere in there a date other than adoption date?
well, wouldn't, if you guys didn't want any changes, wouldn't it be nice to have the adoption date?
No, usually it's just when
Adoption date.
it's adopted till the new
If
one
you
is
review
changed.
date or something like that, you could put on there if you wanted to. If not, we don't even have to.
I don't think we need to do anything, it's, if we're not changing anything.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then it stays the same.
Yeah.
Okay?
Okay.
And
So
then,
we'll just update it digitally.
yep, and then the curriculum design, in the first paragraph, the board shall appoint a curriculum committee to assess curriculum needs, review curricular inclusion, make curricular recommendation on expansion and improvement. Committee shall be composed of 3 board members, which we have on our curriculum committee, superintendent, principals, tech coordinator, MTSS coordinator / instructional coach, and content area teacher reps as appointed annually by the board.
So that would be like we would appoint them at our annual meeting, just
Yep,
clarification,
we're
that's
gonna,
what we
because,
do.
no, we talked about the leadership team switching in May, so we probably do this in April. So that the leadership team would, then they
Okay.
would start on May, whatever
Okay.
Wednesday meeting date the leadership team is. So they would be approved by the board in April.
So we would want that on the agenda
In
each
April, yes.
March probably then, so we're set for April.
Yep, so we'd have it on our April board agenda.
So that's one thing we should make sure we got.
Yep,
all
on a
the time.
rotation basis,
Yep.
because that'll change, those will change yearly. We talked about that anyway, we just weren't sure how to do it. And now that we've got the curriculum, if we're gonna look at curriculum yearly, we'll just
Yep.
have those.
But we should just stick a reminder on our March
Yep.
calendar for to do that. Okay. So we had a motion to accept or amend
Amend,
the
I'll make a
curriculum.
motion to amend the curriculum.
I'll
design
second.
evaluation
Okay.
policy.
GAAA.
Triple A.
There's,
Was
did
it
you second,
Cindy?
Cindy?
Cindy
Yep.
seconded.
Roll call.
Mike,
Yes.
Rob,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Chad,
Yep.
Brent,
Yes.
Michelle,
Yes.
Cindy,
Yes.
Brett,
Yes.
Lee.
Yes. Okay, then we added ND Fit. That's basically our insurance thing that we told to pursue.
Yeah.
Look at.
So they sent out an email Friday afternoon, evening sometime. We set up a call for today, and they told us the deadline to decide if we want to participate or not is April 2nd. This is something that's been worked on since before I even started. It was delayed because of COVID. I did send an email mid-afternoon with the agreement attached. Basically, this first year, we would keep our same health insurance policy that we have now. We would see a 1% premium reduction. If we participate in the wellness portion of it, we would see an additional 1% premium reduction. After that, we could make any policy changes that we wanted as far as improvements, changes, whatever. The wellness benefits that they offer are, a lot of different things, dental, vision, everything we offer now and more. Those would be at the employee's cost, not ours. They require a 7.5% upfront deposit of what our annual premiums usually are, and that amount computes out to $21,992.38. And that basically acts as a deposit on our behalf that we collect back over time as a premium reduction in future years. So we would get that money back at some point. We don't know what kind of period. It's a minimum of a 2-year commitment. After that, you can get out.
City of Valley City was on.
The city of Valley City is on it. Mike talked to Avis, and
I talked to their, just to see, they've been in it a year. They said it did save them some money, they stayed with their same plan. And then they will look at it, but they say they saved some premium on it. That down front money helps you kind of balance, instead of getting a big 10 or 13% increase, it kind of buffers that. So that money, that 21,000, what she calculated, would be in our account at the Bank of North Dakota. So that'll help against a big bump on a premium that we can control a little bit better. She said paperwork wise, and I don't know how it works here.
enrollment is will be all electronic. They have a person that's
HR
dedicated to assisting with your employees' enrollment. If it's someone that doesn't have email or use a computer, they will do it over the phone with them.
It gets you a touch-based person, and it's a little hedge against, like 1 year, what did ours go up, Mike, 15%? That gives you a little bump or help with that big hit that you never know till you're right there.
Just kind of like a group policy.
Yes.
Yeah,
for-
it's
we're getting into a
very
group instead of
similar.
on our
You
own.
learn any more,
It's
because
very
they're trying to work
similar
it
to
with
how
the
NDRF is
southeast.
operated.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything else about it. We have a meeting next month or next week.
Yeah.
But I haven't heard anything.
It's basically underwritten by NDRF, right?
NDRF,
Yeah,
the North Dakota Insurance Reserve Fund or whatever. They were initially working on a project, and the SEEC was working on a project. and they realized they were both doing the same thing, and so they combined together and worked on it together. And, they basically said, you know, that the hope is somewhere down the line to be able to offer that premium refund that you now get for your, you know, from Ender for your liability insurance in the same manner here. There's no guarantee of that, obviously, but.
And still administered by Blue Cross Blue Shield,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah.
Yes.
So they're doing, the insurance policy would be through them then?
The insurance
group
would still
policy,
be
Did the
through Blue
group
Cross
policy.
Blue Shield.
Blue Cross Blue Shield, but that'll be a bigger pool of people or groups to do it than we're at now.
And I think there's currently like, they say 2,600 people that are part of it. And that's before the schools basically get in, because they all were put on hold, because of COVID.
So Lindsay, sound like a good deal?
I think it does. I mean, I don't think you can go
Right.
wrong if you.
It makes
I mean, you're the one that did all the.
Say what?
Change the option of plans that are available.
They do have
For-
different ones, but we were looking
For
at,
this first year, for forever, I guess, I mean, they haven't said that you couldn't keep your current plan. You can keep exactly what you have now, and that's what they're
doing for year one.
highly recommending for year one. There's ways you can change it if you have to, but they're highly recommending you stay with what you have now, because that's what they've based their
Figures on.
their 1% reduction, all of that. Then in year two, you can make changes that you want to make, and they will work with you and make recommendations on what might work better for your school if you want to. But if you don't want to, you can keep your,
But it does give us a contact person that can help us out with getting people enrolled and giving us some input too.
And you said, does have mental health and
They have
That wellness,
Instead
that
of paying.
available the first year for them or not?
the wellness, if we choose to offer the wellness portion, it would be available right away. They would have the opportunity to earn some
Cost of-
rebates or whatever if they do certain health things.
Right, join a gym type stuff.
Yep, and then, like I said, it would have the dental, the vision, supplemental term life, accident and disability, short-term disability, hospital indemnity, critical care, legal plans, and
What we're looking at right now is to keep the same plan going into next year.
Right, and I'm just thinking, because negotiations will be coming up.
That
so-
could be part, I say, what we're looking
And
to
all
approve is the
all they
same
wanna
plan.
know is, yes, we want to participate
Yep.
in the health insurance.
All
The
right.
rest is all optional. There's no payment, that 7.5% is due anytime between basically now and the end of September.
I'll
So,
make a motion that we approve it.
Okay. Motion to enroll.
Enroll.
Enroll, yep. Give it a shot.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Chad. Roll call.
Mike,
Yes.
Rob,
Yes.
Eric, Chad,
Yep.
Brent,
Yes.
Michelle,
Yes.
Cindy,
Yes.
Brett,
Yes.
Lee.
Yes.
Chad, I'm really good at joining a gym, not necessarily using it.
You know what, that's all,
That's
that's all the health, that's all the insurance wants to know, is you are a member of a gym.
Mm-hmm.
That's-
We have a lot, like
Yeah.
14 days a month.
Okay, correspondent or board
Write it down.
discussions? Anybody have anything?
I had a question, Mr. Severson, in the policy committee, we talked about the long-term sub teacher pay. Have you heard anything else more
Yep,
about that, or
what
we
we've
gonna talk
got,
about that?
what we've got is, from 17-18 is 20 days, and it goes to base pay.
Okay. And that's,
That was, Deb found that in.
so we're covered on that already, so.
We're gonna follow what we
Yeah, we're
got
gonna
on
continue to
paper.
follow that, and
All right.
then if we need to make if we need something changed, we'll bring it back to us. That's what we're gonna go with. Yep.
Very good, thank you.
Yep.
I got one, so when we talked about earlier, when you're talking about finding all this stuff, we talked about earlier in the year about employee handbooks,
Yep.
staff handbooks, student I mean, so when or who's gonna start working on them so they're in place when we start next fall?
Principals would do the student ones. We
Okay.
could sit down with the policy committee and go through, and put together an employee one if we wanna do that.
Cause I know that would be good, cause then all this stuff that we're questioning would all be in one book, and
Yeah.
it's right there.
We could do that, we could do an employee one, the policy committee could sit and do that one. Well, and we got the board policy books, we got that, we got.
That, yeah, I'm talking your regular, just something, if a new person comes employed, here you go. Here's your, what's our insurance, I mean, all the stuff that we got there.
Okay.
Cause then it's all there, some of these questions there's the book, there it is.
Sounds good. We've been working at, principals can go ahead and start putting.
Cause I know,
theirs
cause a
together.
couple have asked about student handbooks and it isn't on anymore, so,
No, because we're making changes.
and nothing's been changed and
It
reposted.
is back on, it just, nothing's been changed.
Nothing, it is back on?
It is back on.
Okay.
Yeah, they'll get lost if you take it off there.
Okay. Anybody have anything else? If not, next meeting's Wednesday, the 21st April. You're gonna set up, maybe do some calling on that. And what about budget then? Do we wanna try to do that before we start talking negotiations, or what do we think there?
Up to you guys.
Because I don't think we wanna start negotiations till the session's over, so we're gonna almost have to meet at some point.
Just say-
How does it work on our 30 days to have it on next if we wanna ask for?
It doesn't, because
It
April
doesn't.
20th is our next board meeting,
Right.
21st is the next board meeting.
See, them dates don't fit.
But I thought you had talked about having a meeting to set up the ground rules.
We could possibly
Just
look
do a
at that.
ground rules meeting and then you're
That
covered.
would cover us for starting,
Yeah.
okay?
So you'd be started, then you could
You'd
just
have to
say-
do that before April 10th,
Good day.
Before April 10th?
tomorrow.
Bef- April 10th?
April 10th would be 30
So
days,
who's
today is
negotiating?
March.
Mike and who else? Brad?
Bruner's all about it.
Lee? And who's the?
Right, this four right here.
Okay, here. So Mike was the head negotiator last year, correct? You were the lead?
Is this still part of the meeting, or is it adjourned?
It's adjourned. We're just trying to come up with something.
So I mean, then are you gonna